What is the best triceps exercise? To help us answer this question, I'm going to be using my surface electromyography sensors to measure the muscle activation of both my triceps lateral and long heads. I chose 7 different exercises of which we'll be comparing, each done with 70% of my 1 rep max. Just like last time, we're using the metric known as % maximum voluntary contraction, with 100% simply being our baseline value to help us compare results. We begin with the standard straight bar pushdown done with a pronated grip. After excluding the highest and lowest data values, we're left with an average % MVC of 97% for the lateral head and 134% for the long head. Now we perform another pushdown, however this time with a rope which slightly alters our form. This results in a % MVC of 94% for the lateral head and 107% for the long head, which interestingly enough is a fairly significant difference between pushdown variations for the long head. Moving to a 45-degree triceps extension, both my lateral and long head record their lowest readings yet of 83% and 101% MVC respectively. Now we move away from the cables and perform a barbell skull crusher. This is where things get interesting, with the lateral head down to a 75% MVC average, while the long head records a massive 160% average. Here we get to the extremely controversial overhead triceps extension exercise. The data here is very concrete and shows a lateral head with an 85% MVC reading, while the long head exhibits a measly 83% average, which is quite literally half of its value was in the skull crusher. We transition now to a weighted dip, which nets us a lateral head % MVC average of 81% and a long head average 105%. Lastly, we perform an incline bench press. Triceps activation should be identical on incline bench as it is on flat bench, and I did not perform a close grip. However, we know from past videos that close grip activation is only slightly higher than typical bench press, so keep that in mind. This results in 74% MVC for the lateral head and an extremely low 65% for the long head. Here are our final results for the lateral head. Lateral head activation actually is quite consistent, as shoulder elevation doesn't really affect it very much. Regardless, it does seem pushdown exercises may be your best option. As for the long head, we note it is heavily influenced by how elevated the shoulder is due to it being biarticular, and this clearly shows in the data with the 90-degree shoulder elevation seen in the skull crusher exercise being almost undeniably the best option. Now, this data is entirely dependent on whether or not the long head actually benefits from stretch-mediated hypertrophy, as not all muscles do. The research as of now seems to be very contradicting. This means that the overhead extension could actually be a very good long head exercise if the research swings towards the stretch side, or it could truly be one of the worst. EMG data cannot measure how much passive tension is on a muscle, meaning the long head could be experiencing a ton of passive tension in the overhead extension, but is of course unknown to us only using EMG measurements. For that reason, we must never take this data at face value, as there are far more factors to consider.